During the 1st century BC, construction was started on what would be a temple dedicated to the Roman god Jupiter. This religious edifice was situated within the scenic Beqaa Valley in the city that was known then as Heliopolis. The complex would see its completion around 60 AD and would be the largest temple ever to be constructed by the Romans dedicated to a deity. Every part of the structure was built to massive proportions and of a scale truly befitting that of the gods. Surrounded by towering columns that stood 62 feet tall, the Temple of Jupiter was part of a triumvirate with 2 other colossal temples which were dedicated to his wife Astarte and their son Mercury. While the columns and temples are most certainly Roman, there are still secrets that lay buried beneath these ancient wonders. Within the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter are 3 cyclopean stones which puzzle archaeologists to this very day. All written records of the construction of the temples are lost to time, and these huge stones defy all explanations on how they were moved from the suspected quarry 800 meters away. This case file join the theorists as they mull over monumental temple erections at the ancient city known as Baalbek.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 215, Baalbek. Megalithic structure. I'm Braden.
I'm Sal.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Andrew.
Getting wasted again with the theorists.
Where are you?
I'm in vacation mode, baby. I'm on the sunny beaches of Mexico.
When's departure date?
Next week.
Is it starting 1 week early?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a water bottle
I'm
full of whiskey?
Projecting myself there.
Getting in the zone?
Yeah, this is not whiskey. It's a Miami Vice because that's all I'm going to be drinking.
Fair.
It's good. Crockett and Tubbs approved.
How megalithically hard did this one make you?
Oh, buddy. Rock hard.
Hard as limestone, eh?
We haven't talked about a megalithic structure in a while.
True, it has been a bit.
This hits
it has
all
been a while.
the points for Zell. You know, I heard a lot of young Gadrias. A lot of Hancock.
A lot of pre-flood civilization, massive megaliths. All the goodies are in here. The theories run wild. That's all you're looking for.
It's the surprising thing for me looking into this one was that I've never really heard about it until now. I mean, I've heard Andrew go on and on about it. Baalbek this, Baalbek that. But I've never actually looked into it. And it's crazy because some of the stones in the structure are like the largest stones in the world. They are
Just, yeah, they are. Definitively.
right? Like, fuck the pyramids.
Oh,
But Baalbek.
Pyramids got nothing on Baalbek. Nothing.
I mean, they have number over size, but
Well, yeah. Well, they have complexity, and yes,
That's not what it matters.
they have everything else, but Baalbek's got the biggest, or some of the biggest
that we know of.
Yeah. So unearthed, biggest unearthed so far. Anyways.
Well, I mean, not the biggest, but some of the biggest.
They're the biggest for now, and then we might get to a couple bigger ones later. But it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is a fantastic structure that's located in Lebanon, at an altitude of about 1,100 meters above sea level in the Beqaa Valley, which is also known by the Roman name as Heliopolis.
I'm pretty sure that's Andrew's hometown.
What's up?
Is that your hometown? Are you?
Wow, it's where like Baalbek is about 60 miles away from my my ancestors' village, where my Judo and Teta were born.
That's cool.
So yeah, they're pretty like. I called one of my aunties to talk to her about this because like we have got pictures of that. My mom sat on the fucking Hajar al-Khibla, and apparently like you're supposed to touch it, and it's supposed to make you more fertile. So, maybe Baalbek is the reason why I'm here. You never know.
The essence
Could very
of
well be.
the
Yeah, could
Baalbek
be.
megaliths flows through your body.
I mean, I must.
I like it.
Makes sense. Actually, it doesn't. Things don't correlate. Biggest megalithic structure. I got nothing megalithic about me, boys. Everything's quite miniature here.
Yeah.
But let's be honest.
Average lithic.
At best.
The structure,
average.
most of the structures that are left there now are of, or seem to be in the Roman fashion in most of the constructions. But the actual place, the location has been in use by humans since the Bronze Age. So at least 9,000 years of what archaeologists estimate. The location of the town is on a, what they call a tell, which is like an artificially created kind of mound, which is just kind of it's like a byproduct of human habitation. So it's just like the gradual buildup of
Waste.
structures and building on top of things.
They're built on top of a dump. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
Landfill. Yeah.
I mean, technically, most ancient towns that have been inhabited since antiquity are all built on top of anything. It's like if anybody's been to Rome, like Rome is just built on top of
Everything.
It's like meters and meters of cities are underneath the actual city itself, like the modern day city.
Well, it's almost
I
it's
know
easier.
that, and it wasn't built in a day.
Yeah,
This is true.
it's easier just to backfill the old building or like rubble than try and break it down and remove it. So they just keep going up.
Yeah, fucking right. So work smarter, not harder, man.
Yeah, 100%.
Fucking right.
So the actual location of the Baalbek, like the temple complex that we're going to talk about, was actually discovered by German archaeologists in 1898. So fairly recently. So Baalbek is actually an ancient Phoenician city, is what it's mostly known as, and was named after their sky god, which they named Baal, and probably people have heard that name before. And there are some like anthropologists and archaeologists that would argue that Baal may have been the prototype for Zeus and Jupiter, like mostly those sky father storm gods, because that was his main domain.
I was really disappointed when I looked into it and Baal was not the Lord of Destruction.
Right? That's what I was thinking too. I was like, oh, what kind of temple is this?
I was like, is this whole Diablo franchise built upon Baalbek?
A lie?
It's all a lie.
No, their Baal was a sky god and fertility god. Is I think they were his main concerns as a deity, I believe. So, in the first millennium BC, it's estimated that there was actually, and it is what they've dated, an enclosed court that was built there and dedicated to the god Baal. And then Heliopolis, the Roman structures and the further structures were built on top of this massive platform that was most likely constructed in pre-Roman times for that initial temple of or city of Baal. So that's where Baalbek gets its name. It's essentially like translates to city of Baal. Like that's their
Like after
and
the
I think
god.
that was kind of the main practice for a lot of cities, was kind of to name a town after a deity or a deity or a king is what they would do back then.
Right.
So, which leads you to believe, like, obviously this area was like the major hub of it was the entire area worshiped Baal, right? Like the Canaanites as a whole, it wasn't just a Phoenician god. It was a Canaanite god as well, which means it was like prehistoric, Syria, Iran, fucking all those areas.
Right.
And then, so this was like the main hub, the city of God, basically.
Yeah, what give that away? Because I don't think they're carving up and dragging 1,500-pound stones in the fucking boonies. Right? I think there's something going on here. Right?
It's weird too. Like you never really hear, like you always hear about like the other like massive sites around the world. You hear about the pyramids and Machu Picchu and all these other ones. But Baalbek, for whatever reason,
they don't want you to know.
Our little Lebanon friend does not get the love that they need.
They don't want you to know.
One of the biggest interests or things about the site is that there is very little to no history about the construction that went on there and that is visible to us that has been excavated. There are no written records. Nobody knows who commissioned it to be built. Nobody knows who built it there in the first place. There's no records, no written records, no nothing. Like it seems that Baalbek, for all intents and purposes, when you look at it, just kind of sprung up at some point. Then it's just there.
It was kind of like it's kind of like a Göbekli Tepe. Is just like it just came seemingly out of nowhere. And this area, the area's got to be at least, like they say, like they found evidence at least 9,000 years old.
And there's no, the first time it shows up, I think in written, as far back as is probably when they said the Greek presence made itself in Syria, which is probably around the 7th century BC. And there was mention of the actual area itself, but no mention of an actual temple of this size or the most interesting part of the temple complex is what is known as the trilithon. Now, a trilithon isn't actually like an architectural term in itself, but these 3 stones, which are placed at this temple site, are so monumentally large that that's just the name that they've earned. They're not an actual trilithon. A trilithon is something you can think of as like a Stonehenge, where you have 2 large blocks and then topped with a 3rd large block. These ones are laid down pretty much like right next to each other across like another material underneath it. And then so you have these massive stone blocks.
I think that's the thing. Like, here's something you guys need to realize too, though, right? Like, Sal's wondering, like, we've never heard of this. We don't understand these. And Dan's explaining, like, these are so huge. They're so massive and heavy. These stones, it doesn't make sense. The whole world should know about this. And it's like, here in Lebanon, we're like, these stones, they're not even heavy, dude. This is nothing.
They're nothing.
My teta, my grandma's picking this shit up on her back. No problem. This is normal. This is just everyday occurrences in Lebanon. We're born curling megalithic structures here. That's what I'm trying to tell you. All right. It's nothing.
If you haven't seen it, if you've listened, like if you're listening right now and you're like, I've never heard of Baalbek, just pause this really quick and just go Google these stones, because you can get pictures of people beside them and stuff for scale. It is unbelievable how big they are. It's unfathomable. I
have some pictures here, but for some reason, like, just give me a second, they're not coming up.
So there's 3 stones stacked next to each other, and the largest of them weighs about 1,500 tons, and then that one measures about 68 by 14 by 14 feet. These things are massive. They are actually the largest building blocks that have existed in the entire world, like building blocks that are part of a structure, and they're just there. It's absolutely fun. Like I recently got a VR helmet, and I was telling Braden earlier, I took a VR tour. Like a guy had like the little 360 camera on a stick, and like I was looking around at these things, and it is really telling about just not just those stones itself, but the entire temple itself, which is the most one. These 3 stones are part of what is known as the Temple of Jupiter. Like the entire structure is just gigantic, and I think the word cyclopean comes into play a whole bunch.
Right.
And that's a pretty appropriate word to use to describe these things, because it's like only these stones can be put up by giants, because they are just built to such gigantic proportions that you're like, no normal human would like build this. Like, why?
Right. Just labs, man.
Yeah. So the whole temple complex. So like, yeah, they call it Heliopolis, like a Roman term, is built. So huge temple. Like, think the Temple of Jupiter. It doesn't like this. That's what it is, right? Temple of Jupiter, Heliopolis.
Yeah.
It only has like a few standing pillars, like Roman pillars left.
Right.
But underneath of it, so the whole foundation of this place is like built with like 60 to 80 ton stones. And then on top of them, there's like 200 to 400 ton stones. But then you get to this one spot with the 3 stones that are 800 tons a piece. And they're seemingly up 20 feet in the air. They actually, if you zoom in, I found like some great pictures that I can't pull up here because they were like copyrighted, but they have like beveled edges. Like, so not only were the stones 800 tons, like the size of like 10 modern day houses with the foundation, they also were like perfectly beveled. So like they mirrored each other when they put them together. So not only whoever built it whoever the engineers were, it wasn't just about the size of the stones for like foundation. It was like also like an art piece, like the way they stuck them together. So we got one picture, just an old school picture when they first found it, or at least one of the first photographs. So if you're watching the live stream, there's guys
and
standing.
There's a little person in the bottom left hand side there. If you're watching the live stream, to see how big these stones are.
They're absolutely massive. Like,
It's crazy.
nothing else there's a lot of giant megaliths in Peru and other places, but
Nothing to this size. Not even close. Not even close. And it's like Zell's saying, like when those things were probably originally put together, you probably couldn't even slide a piece of paper in between them. Like they're so close together. It's just like,
even now you can still see like there's like, if you go digging around, there's zoomed in pictures of the joints and you can just see the detail, and that's thousands of years later. So like, yeah, I could imagine when they're freshly cut and polished and stuck together, like it's amazing.
so now not only do you have these 3 stones, which are located on the Temple of Jupiter that made it to the construction, but there's actually another one, and that's the one that Andrew mentioned earlier. There's another stone that's about 800 meters from the tell, and probably a lot of archaeologists will say like this was it probably was meant to go to this temple for some reason, but that one had never gotten taken out of the ground, and this one is known as the Stone of Pregnant Women. And there's nobody really knows why it's named that.
There's
where
like
that name came from.
I was talking to my auntie, and apparently, like from what she heard when she was growing up as a kid, is basically there was a pregnant woman that convinced the townsfolk that, if they fed her and sheltered her, until she had her baby, she'd use her magic and move the stone for them. And then when she gave birth to the baby, they fled without moving the stone. And then henceforth, it's been like just used as, you touch it, sit on it, it'll make you more fertile.
Right.
There's
definitely
there's
one of the
other
legends.
things too. Like they think that maybe this woman was a Nephilim as well, but they don't know for sure.
We'll get into that.
I would. If it were if it were just because it's associated with the Temple of Jupiter, like fertility would make sense, because I think Baal was also a fertility god as well. And plus, like Jupiter, who is also the analog for Zeus, it's like, yeah, dude was fucking knocking up chicks left and right. So, I mean,
Zeus fucks. Zeus fucks.
Yeah, that's pretty much all of Greek mythology is Zeus fucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guy populated the entire pantheon himself, essentially. Yeah. So, I mean, come on. So that one was that was probably one of the ones that was found earlier, but recently they even found ones below that one. They have known about that one for a while, but in the 1990s they found another like 1,200 ton stone in the same quarry underneath that one, and then they found another one later, just in 2014, a 1,600 ton stone. Carved in a similar fashion.
So we said that like the trilithon stones are 800 tons roughly. They find another one 400 tons more, and then another one 400 tons more, double the stone that's built into the foundation.
And at least I think most of them add, I think the other 2 that are lower, more recently just got it. Like they said that those ones are actually kind of still attached to the ground. Like they had been carved out. And for some reason, the architects had decided like, we're not going to use these, or something happened and they didn't finish taking these out of the ground, but they're there. And there might be more, but we're not sure at this point, because I think there's a lot of archaeological digs have been put on hold because of unrest in the region and certain political climates.
So I found this one picture. Is this Andrew, do you know if this is the stone of the pregnant woman?
That's the one.
That's it. Yeah. That's the Hajar el-Hibla.
So it's a stone that's like 2/3 out of that's been like excavated. It's the size of like,
looks like a fucking train. Looks like a piece of a train.
It looks like a tower laying on its side.
It's fucking crazy.
Right? Look like a giant semi-trailer of stone, solid stone, just sitting there. And they've excavated 2 more beneath it. So it makes you wonder, like, is there more? Like in another 50 years, are they going to start doing like more ground radar and find like they find like like 1,000 of these spread over the area?
Well, and like the sad part about this too is you cannot find a more broke government than the Lebanese government. Like there is no money being spent to search for anything else, to uncover anything. Like the government currently right now is like charging, they're charging the citizens for WhatsApp.
What?
No, I'm not, zero exaggeration. Like they're just, it's so awful there. It's so sad, but it's
well,
just,
you know what? I got the solution is you market this site of Baalbek as a tourism destination and you start bringing in millions of dollars here.
Yeah, it's nobody wants to go there right now. That's not safe. You're going to get kidnapped. You're going to get murdered. You're going to get caught in the middle of a fucking like.
I'll go. Let's do it. Pod trip.
Dude, I'm willing to do it. But I mean, we're going to have to buy all the suntan lotion for you. Like all of it.
I think we got to get him a spray tan before we go.
Hey, dude, I've been to some of the worst UV places in the world. Don't you worry.
You haven't burned?
Oh, I did burn, but I've been there.
That's not the point.
I've been there, and I survived, and I came back. So I can
peeled out of my skin like a snake.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Oh man, I'd love. Hey, there's our pod trip. Let's go to.
I'll wear a really big hat. No problem. Really big.
No problem.
Get you like one of those with Marlon Brando hats from fucking
big straight rim.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
It is a fantastic site, and like Andrew is saying, like the political climate there, it is a shame. It is a crying shame that's what it is right now. That this site, which is just recently been discovered and excavated in parts, in the like mid 2000s here, and we're still finding new things of this, and there's still a bunch of mystery about who built it. So to get into some of the origins about these parts. So we mentioned before that the Temple of Jupiter is built on top of these stones. So a lot of archaeologists and a lot of other people who have studied the site say that the trilithon, those stones, are part of a complex or part of a structure that was there before the Romans built it. Because when it was named Heliopolis, like that, it became kind of like a vacation town for Romans at a point. When Pompeii,
it was Ptolemy. I thought it was Pompeii.
Well, Pompeii took it. Pompeii originally conquered that area and then kind of like took over after, kicked out the original kind of government, which had fallen into disarray after I think Alexander had taken it after the Hellenistic period. And then after
Caesar chased his ass to Egypt.
And so then after Julius Caesar seized power, you had it kind of became, he actually settled there at some point for a couple of years. I think for 20 or 30 years, he actually named a city in that area after his daughter, Julia, and was kind of known to be in that area. So some people say that perhaps like this might have been why they chose this spot to build a lot of these huge structures, because it was not that well known a city. And a lot of people kind of question the fact, why would you build these because not only is there a temple of Jupiter, there's also the temple of Dionysus there, or Bacchus, and then there's the temple of Venus as well, or Astarte.
It's a whole complex.
There's a couple of other temples there, which are fantastic.
It's also like the jewel of the Middle East, like by far. It's the most beautiful fucking country in the Middle East. Like, not being biased, it is.
No, like from what I read, like Lebanon has like giant cedar trees and lush forests, where a lot of the other area around is mainly desert, rocky, like not fertile like ground for farming. And that area, especially like just off the Mediterranean, that was one
back in the day for sure, because I mean Lebanon, on the flag it's got the cedar tree, right? It's the national tree.
They talk about it in the Bible, it was the Phoenicians were fucking way ahead of their time, man. They did use a lot of that. I'm just saying for back then it probably was even more rich in natural resources, because they had these entire forests, and it's mentioned in antiquity and writings about these wonderful forests of cedar. That's what it was known for. And then eventually, yes, they got cut down to make ships and make buildings, and as settlements kind of popped up everywhere. Growing up, I have most Lebanese kids, they have a necklace with a cedar of Lebanon on it. It's just,
it's tradition, yeah.
Right, all the kids get them. and then going to school, you know, all the kids would be like, why do you have a Christmas tree around your neck? Like, why do you really like Christmas? Like, why? Like, what? And you're just like, motherfucker. It's getting made, my lunch stinks too. I was getting made fun of my stinky lunches and shit.
I went down a rabbit hole of this, like, I was just reading something about, like, back in the day, them selling the cedar trees was a gold mine. Because no one had them. They would travel around you because that was like the main resource of the area. And it
was the main trading port too.
It was one of the major trades. I think also they were known for, what is it, tear, like a type of purple dye.
Purple dye, buddy.
Was also
you've been playing Age of Empires, you know.
Well, I mean, I knew this also in the history books.
Did you know that they were the first ones to circumnavigate Africa?
You did tell me that
if we're talking about the Phoenicians. So on the point of Phoenicians, yes, the Phoenicians are thought to have, are likely suspects in the case of who built Baalbek, or the original structure beneath it, who placed the trilithon. I think the Phoenicians are at the top of the list. And if you don't know about the Phoenicians, they're...
Who else is strong enough to do it? Come on.
The Phoenicians were, yes, world-renowned sailors and traders. They were what is known as I think it's a vassal-oligarchic society, where they really didn't have a whole country. And there's a lot of evidence to support that they never really identified themselves as a singular culture. But they are places that, you know, a lot of the ancient cities, ancient Western cities, like owe their their infrastructure and a lot of their trade routes and trade and ideas and things like this to the Phoenicians, who established a civilization based mostly on maritime trade. So places like they're credited with the beginnings of Carthage, one of the hugest cities and biggest rivals to Rome in ancient times. It's places like Baalbek. What was the other cities, like Carthage and... I remember the other. Carthage is the biggest one. I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head, but you can really. They are likely suspects, but the thing is, one of the things that people kind of question is that they're not really known for their masonry. Their architecture, I think, which is mostly resembles.
It's tough to say that though, Dan. Because like you say, they were like that area has always been a gigantic melting pot of culture.
Sure,
right? Like it's one of the main hubs for fucking trading. And then you look at Lebanon, that's even like, it's still consistent to this day, right? Like Lebanon's really hung its hat on not, like they get a lot of flack because they don't consider themselves Arabs, right? They're Lebanese. And like that has a lot to do with what happened in the Civil War. But also like you look at the people, like I have cousins who are fucking pale as Zell with red hair and blue eyes. And they're Lebanese as fuck. They're born and raised, right? Like it's...
Right. Well, I mean, it could be a product of like, you know, it was settled by Romans and, that civilization.
Romans, Celtics, everything. Crazy.
Everybody, I think they had like at one point, like there was a Gallic legion that was posted there. So you had Gauls coming through there, like people from the Gallic regions of Europe, which is like Spain, or not Spain. Sorry. It's like France. And those types, like blonde hair, blue eyes, like that kind of those kinds of features that would be present in those people. So you had like, again, it's a melting pot of civilizations and things like this, and trade and ideas and culture, and
being that port city too, a port country, coastal country under that many different I guess I don't know, ownership. Like that many people had ownership of the land. That
region is just traded hands so many times. And we already mentioned the Phoenicians, and then you had the Alexanders, Macedonians, Greeks come through. You had the Romans come through.
The Moops. The Moops.
You had the after like Romans, then you had not just like the original Romans, then you had like the Christian Romans, and then you had the Arabs come through and take over, and then it went back to, I think that the French, like the French had it at some point.
The Sykes-Picot Agreement after World War I, the French got Lebanon.
Yeah, and the French got
it's still the primary language in Lebanon is French.
Yeah,
and it's not like in this time of history, like these other cultures would come in and it was a lot of time it was a conquest, not a handshake deal. So like this area was like rife with like conquests, like all through history. So
I mean, like the 1898 archaeological expedition, I think like that was a product of like the kind of the friendship between the Ottoman Empire and
like the Ottoman Empire and like Germany, like when they came in there, and like they had their German archaeologists come through there, and then I think they were really trying to get onto to sell the point. There's historians that would argue that it was kind of the Ottoman Empire was trying to kind of position itself as like the rightful the rightful heir to the Roman legacy is what it was. So that's what they kind of like pushed for these archaeological expeditions in that area. So it's one of those kind of things. But I mean, it's still amazing that this is what came out of it. And you have this amazing structure that, even though it's been, some parts of it have been picked apart, like we said, there are like the Temple of Jupiter only has like a couple of these gigantic columns left. It originally had like 64 or something, and now there's only like 4 left standing with a huge block of stone on top of it. It's still massively impressive.
So we have this ancient site. It seems to have. I mean, it's no question that Romans were master masons. Like they're giant. There's giant stone columns, and they were master. They had actual cranes. They had the Roman crane. It could hold like about 5 tons per crane. You could, and depending on the stone, you could wiggle a few together, and you can pick up 15, 20. If you link them all together, you could leverage, use a crane. You get 3, 4, 5 cranes. You could lift some pretty big stones.
Right. They were master engineers.
They were master engineers. Probably the best known ancient engineers too, because there's still a lot of surviving history from them. Mm-hmm. But nowhere else in the Roman Empire with their 800-ton stones.
Yes.
So
yes,
I mean the theory is,
and it's not written down.
And no one,
that's what a lot of people, when they center in on it, Baalbek, they always say that, because it's true, there is no written record of this. The Romans, who were, really into bureaucracy, really liked to write things down and keep records. Nothing.
Well, it was in the Library of Alexandria, right next to the world's largest porn collection.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And
everybody just gets distracted and goes right to the porn. Nobody reads it.
Right.
It is a very interesting that one point, because a lot of people I kind of went 2 ways with it. I went down a rabbit hole of people really trying to make a case that this was, in fact, it's a Roman structure. The Romans built the entire thing from ground up. And one of the things they naysayers point to that is the fact that they didn't write it down. But one of the things that I thought was fascinating that they point to being, a Roman structure is that there's the Roman drums. So the giant Roman drum stones, they're circular. They're used to repair buildings a lot of times. And you can see them at the top of some of the structure of Baalbek where they've been put in, and they kind of jut out. Well, there's one Roman drum underneath one of these, I always want to say trillium.
Trilithon
stones. There's
Trilithon.
There's trilithon. There's a single Roman drum. So what a lot of people, when they've dug this thing up and they lean to this being Roman, is they go, well, there's a Roman drum underneath one of them. It has to be a Roman structure. And, people are like, yeah, they buried it, so they didn't worry about cutting it even. And that's a huge, proponent of people being like, yeah, it's a Roman structure. But when you look at this thing and they dig it out, there's excavated photos of this one Roman drum, and it too jets out. You can see it. It doesn't look like the other stones. And even the stones beside it aren't rounded. They're all nice and sheared off. They look smooth. You can see that this one stone, it looks different. And they're just so, the point to where they're like, oh yeah, they didn't bother cutting this one up straight and flush because it was going to get buried. I was like, well, then how come they did it with the other ones? I was like, how come all the other ones underneath and beside it are all nicely done and this one's rounded? I was like, to me, this looks like a repair job. Like the Romans came in at whatever time when they came in and were repairing this thing.
Found it.
They found a hole or whatever, and they stuffed it with one of the Roman drums. And they didn't carve it perfectly because they knew it was going to be buried, but they just wanted to make it structurally sound. And, there was arguments made that the stones above it, because there's a couple stones above it haven't been moved. They're like, well, it would have had to been placed. But I was like, you could wedge those ones up like as you're moving stuff out. Or if, it wasn't completely, you could shore those up as you're sliding something in. Like that's not out of the question. But that I kind of got down this rabbit hole of why this thing was a Roman built structure. And I was just trying to like go at it as a contrarian of like, well, they weren't answering all my questions.
No, for sure. I mean, the temple on top 100% is Roman.
It makes sense.
But there's a lot of theories we got to get to. But first, we're going to take a quick break, grab a beer, because there's some fun ones. And I'm fucking chomping. I'm chomping, baby.
Yeah, I can't.
I'm ready. I'm ready to fly.
He's megalithlically hard at this point.
Oh, dude, it's raging.
You're gonna have to tilt that camera up.
Yeah, I might just turn the camera off.
Trilithon in his pants.
Yeah.
All right, stick around. We'll be right back.
So now we've got a bunch of theories. Like we said, Phoenicians at the top of the list of suspects about who fucking put those rocks there and who gets Zell the rock hardest. Phoenicians. But there is a long list.
Phoenicians is a good one, but we're going to move on.
There's a long list of other suspects that other people have studied and kind of came up with research that they've attributed to the movement of the stones and the placement of these architectural wonders to perhaps the Nephilim. As Andrew mentioned earlier, that perhaps the stone of the pregnant women, or that local legend, is perhaps based around the myth or the legend of the Nephilim, the angel human hybrids of biblical.
They're pretty much we're talking about like half gods here.
Yeah,
like demigods essentially.
Demigods, yeah.
Or like from what I understand, like from when I've heard about them or talked about them, it's more so like they're usually more referred to as like the jinn, which are like giants.
Mm-hmm. Well, they were giants of men. I mean, described in the Bible, they are larger than normal men, have abilities and powers that go beyond that of the children of Adam and Eve, traditionally. Mm-hmm. So that is one of the suspects for if you dip down into the supernatural suspects, the Nephilim comes up as the first ones, that these giants were around at that time and were able to lift these stones and put them in place for their building of their temples and things like that. Because it's not saying, I think in the Bible you can still make an argument that the Nephilim aren't necessarily like, they're not evil. They were there. They were products of the union of human women and angels, and they probably still worshipped, God or, a deity of some type.
They're just like a powerful in between.
Yes.
That's what they were.
But they were not, in the Bible sense, they were not supposed to be there. And that's why that's why God sent down the flood, or one of the reasons they sent down the flood.
And to be honest, like it makes sense when you look at these stones, because like they're so big that even trying to like wrap my brain around like nowadays, like how would you do this? And then if you were to be like, well, if you had imagine you could do this with what you're thinking in your brain, but you had some like giants that were super strong. I'd be like, okay, well now this makes a little more sense to me. Maybe I can make this happen, because
you build that shit pretty quick with a couple Hulks. No problem. Yeah. Bingo, bango, bongo.
And that's essentially what an Arabic manuscript mentions, is that the great grandson of Noah, Nimrod, had sent giants to rebuild Baalbek after the flood. And so it is, and then it's also kind of another legend states that Nimrod actually rebelled against the Semitic god Yahweh and built the Tower of Babel there. So these stones are perhaps even remnants of the tower, or the foundation itself is perhaps a foundation for the Tower of Babel, where he was going to go up and fight God. I mean, he was just really angry, and he's like, you know what? Hey, I'm going to go up there.
And he flew on the back of a giant bird and then fell to his death on.
I also learned something. I learned something fun about Nimrod, that I always thought Nimrod. I have referred to people in the past as Nimrods because I thought it was just a generic term for a stupid person.
And when he says past, he means like 50 minutes ago when he referred to us as Nimrods.
It's like, you Nimrods.
But I learned that the term Nimrod to refer to a person who is a bit foolhardy is actually it was popularized by a Looney Tunes cartoon. I remember it's the episode or the short where Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck are with Elmer Fudd, and they refer to I think Bugs Bunny refers to him as poor little Nimrod. But the thing is, the joke is that he refers to Elmer Fudd as Nimrod because Nimrod was known as a great hunter and someone who thinks of himself as a great hunter.
Not like Elmer Fudd.
Not like a stupid person, but it was kind of like a sarcastic comment, ironic comment, which I was like, dude, that's hilarious.
So that one comment, sarcastic comment, changed the meaning of a word for a generation.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny too, because apparently, so Nimrod's mom was a god, right? Because there are, in a lot of biblical lore, they consider Nimrod a fucking Nephilim as well.
Well, I mean, he was, I don't know, it was his mom.
That was his thing. Was
his father of Noah's line? I didn't look up the genealogy. I didn't look up the family tree.
So what happens if you're say you have a Nephilim, a hybrid, but then that Nephilim mates with a regular human again? Now you got like a quarter breed. What's that called?
A quarter god.
Quarter god.
And that's how you get NFL players.
And that's NBA. And that's where super athletes come from.
Yeah.
Man, I like this theory of say these Nephilim, they are, let's take the fantastic out of it. They're just they're a bigger species of a bigger hominid. Say they're twice the size or 3 times the size of us, strength wise and height and everything. The way humans have mainly built over thousands of years is mainly building manageable sized stones. Mainly. There are, in Egypt, bigger stones, around the world, bigger stones, but mainly it's types of bricks or stuff like that can be easily molded, transported, and placed for the most part. And then and then on foundations, they would use bigger stones because we didn't pour concrete and dig down.
Normally, you would see stones like the trilithon, you would see those broken into smaller, more manageable pieces. Not super small, but they would still be something that you would imagine or see more commonly in architecture around the world.
In modern size, huge still, but for back then, broken down to most of the pyramid stones were 2 to 6 tons, and then the big granite ones were 20 to 80 tons max. So it makes sense that you just had a bigger species of hominid. That could
bigger group of people
just bigger, and just moving 1-ton stones or more was just more manageable. So in that way, this theory kind of makes sense.
So another theory,
just to add on to that, and because my brain goes right away to people going where's all the bones? Where's the bones? And it's maybe not even their stature was that much greater, but maybe their muscle density.
Just stronger,
right?
general.
Maybe they're just stronger. If you think about pound for pound, look how small chimps are compared to us. But they'll pull your arms apart.
Pull your fucking face off.
So it's if you have some sort of species that's similar to us, but they have such denser muscles and they're just way stronger than we are. But when they die, their skeletal remains. You go it must be him.
Yeah, but you would. Your bones to be able to carry those type of loads would have to be fucking some dense ass bones. You would have a different skeleton.
Yeah, you'd probably. I think you'd probably be able to see where the muscles attached, and you'd be able to. I think people would be able to. Forensic archaeologists or anthropologists could kind of put that together. But absolutely. I mean, but maybe not. Maybe they're just they don't find the bones. They haven't found the burial.
Well, we've also talked about just fossilized bones are not very common. Most humans are going to decompose to dirt, and that's it. You have to be encased, sealed from oxygen, flooded over with mud to make a fossil.
What if the Nephilim are fucking Jedis though? You got to burn them every time they die. You got to burn them.
Or no, even easier.
It's a send off.
When they die, they just disappear into the force and they're gone. There's no bones.
Yeah. Force ghost.
Force ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andrew mentioned before the jinn. So the jinn either perhaps are Nephilims or perhaps a whole nother type of supernatural being. There is the Temple of Solomon, if you mention this. So the Temple of Solomon is also, I believe, mentioned like in the Bible. I believe it's said that Solomon hired Phoenician architects, or referred to them as Phoenicians, to come and build his temples. And they built the Temple of Solomon, and there's actually a stone which is closely approaches the approximation of the trilithons. One of the stones in the foundations or in one of the retaining walls does have the same size, and they do a lot of people studies or professors and what academics of ancient architecture mark a lot of similarities in some of the methods and even tools, like the tools that marks of tools and kind of trademark techniques that were used to quarry some of the stones and place the stones. They can find parallels between the two. So the Temple of Jupiter, like the trilithon, like that structure, the original foundation, and the Temple of Solomon. So some think that perhaps even the same architects that worked, same team of architects that worked on the Temple of Solomon, perhaps contemporarily worked on the Temple of Jupiter as well.
Similar engineering.
There was I was reading a theory too that potentially Solomon had the temple created as a gift to the Queen of Sheba.
Yes,
and he used jinn to do so. Yeah.
Yes. And then there's also a story that the jinn went on strike, and then they had to not finish it. Because I think we talked about it. I don't think actually we talked about it, but King Solomon had it's in legend, he had a ring that could control jinn. There's a legend about that. I always remember that one. But yeah, that's one of the things. And so I think some of that people mark as supporting evidence is that the Bible mentions it mentions Baal in the Bible. The deity Baal is mentioned in the Bible, and that there is Baalath, which is a town of the tribe of Dan. So my tribe, I suppose.
Dan's tribe.
And which was fortified by King Solomon in 970 BC. And this is where Baal was actually worshipped by the permission of Solomon. So it is saying that perhaps that this is Baalath is actually Baalbek, and that would connect the Temple of Solomon and Baalbek. So it kind of works out. You could reason out that the same architects that worked on something there would work on the Temple of Solomon as well.
Good, not bad.
It's a cool mind control
theory.
ring.
Yeah, it was like a Green Lantern ring, I suppose. I don't know. That's how it works.
No, it's not that. My wife's got one of those rings. I bought it for her. Now she controls me. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
There's just a mention in the chat. We got to make a shirt. Tribe of Dan.
Oh, you know what? You know what's funny?
Tribe called Dan.
I did just add a new Dan shirt. Remember that we had that someone do that artist rendering of Dan in the little fez?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I redid that because it was
looks just like Sola.
Yeah, so I fixed that up and put it on a shirt. But what I'll do now is I'll pull that down and I'll go Tribe of Dan.
Tribe of Dan.
And with just Dan looking unamused.
It's what everybody wants for Christmas.
Yeah.
It's the
hottest, hotter than Turbo Man. Tribe of Dan shirts.
So naturally, when you have a megaliths and you have very little evidence about where they came from, naturally it comes up that perhaps extraterrestrials were involved in this. So that's the thought of Matest M. Agrest, who is a Soviet mathematician who first proposed in 1959 that the trilithon at Baalbek had actually been created by extraterrestrials as a launch pad. Like this large platform that was sitting under the Temple of Jupiter was perhaps a launch pad for extraterrestrial craft.
Wait, first off, this guy's name does not sound Russian at all.
Well, Russia's a big place.
Agrest?
Yeah. I mean, he was a Soviet mathematician, so it's doesn't mean he's Russian.
Right.
Any of the Soviet,
all-encompassing
Soviet satellite states,
USSR.
as well. So.
Okay, I'll let it pass.
We'll give him a pass.
That's okay.
I'll give him a pass on this one.
I'll give him a pass on the name.
He's the same guy that
one only.
He's the same guy that put that theory that like Sodom and Gomorrah was actually like they was destroyed in actual nuclear war, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's the same person. The idea that I think you can trace a lot of the ancient alien kind of theories and a lot of that stuff that the Von Daniken works kind of goes back to him, I believe, or at least like they were contemporaries. Like it's very close about who came up with the first one, I think. And, Sitchin's in there as well. The idea is kind of appropriate, but I believe giving credit where credit is due. And I think Agris kind of came up with it first.
So now his theory is that like the trilithon, that's the launch pad, not necessarily the whole like platform, but does he say
I think the whole platform itself? Like I think there is a story that is associated with Baalbek. I think that this was a place of ancient legend that this is where Baal, the sky god, landed. Like at some point he touched Earth here at Baalbek, and so
it's pulled from the roots where it comes from is from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, like I've got Sitchin's theory. Like I wrote it down. It's actually pretty cool.
Okay, let's
far-fetched as it is, but
let's hear Sitchin's theory because he's a big influence on many of this ancient astronaut stuff from the area.
Like Anunnaki is him. That's his game.
Yeah, at least from this area, it's Sitchin.
Yeah.
So he says, Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, in ancient Sumer, went there as Baalbek, right? 2900 BC to obtain immortality from the gods. Having been the son of the goddess Nimsum and the high priest of Uruk, Gilgamesh was considered not just a demigod, but 2/3 divine. This, he asserted, entitled him to avoid death, a death of a mortal. Yes, his mother told him, but to obtain our longevity, you have to go to our planet Nibiru. So Gilgamesh journeyed from Sumer, which Sumer is like Iraq, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Iraq. So from Iraq to the landing place, which we know now is Baalbek, or supposedly Baalbek, which Lebanon, right? Mm-hmm. So the landing space is what he refers to it in the Cedar Mountains, where the rocket ships of the gods were lofted. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, a text found inscribed on clay tablets, actually describes how Gilgamesh witnessed a rocket ship being launched from the landing place. A later Phoenician coin depicted such a rocket standing on a launching pad below. So we've got you can see the coin as well, Zal. I can throw it in the chat for you. You can post it if you want, but it's kind of fucking cool.
So the coin that depicts a rocket launching?
Yeah, a rocket launching.
Or it could be interpreted as a rocket launching.
Well, we're gonna say
or it could just be a fucking tree.
Or it could be an obelisk because people like obelisks.
Yeah, it definitely looks like an obelisk, but
well,
a rocket also looks like an obelisk.
They're both
too,
phallic in nature, so we'll give them that. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can pull this up here. What does this look like? So it looks like a
dick.
It looks like a dick. Where'd it go? I lost it.
Little rock
you
dick.
just see dicks.
Could be a giant dick. Very well.
Well, for some reason, it's not coming up.
Braden suffered from that same situation that Seth did in fucking Superbad, where he just saw dicks everywhere and drew them.
I was drawing obelisks everywhere.
One day, Braden was
throbbing, veiny obelisk.
Yeah, he was drawing one big veiny triumphant motherfucker, and
triumphant obelisks, veiny obelisks.
Okay, wait. I think I do have it here. 1 second. I think that's it. Let's pull it over.
But Nibiru, that's
hard.
Anunnaki, right?
It's hard to tell what this is.
Okay. Also, Planet X, Planet 9.
Which is cool though. Like that ties it back into fucking the Anunnaki, which could be the gods of these people at the time. Like it's pretty rad.
So here we're looking at the coin now on the stream. Okay, so it looks like you do have like a temple, and on the side of it, it looks like I'm not going to say it looks like a rocket ship, but
listen,
it looks
I would never look at this coin and be like, that's a rocket ship. That's making quite a stretch.
But it does look like it looks different. It doesn't look like the roof of the building. It looks like this is a platform for something on top.
Yeah.
I'll give it that.
Which is weird too. Like, remember being in the first thing I thought when we went to Chichen Itza is like those big flat top. I'm like, this is a fucking landing plant. Dude, that's exactly
Dude, we were all there. The three of us were there, and we were a little hungover. We're just looking at these like, that's an alien launch pad right there, 100%.
Absolutely.
What else would that be?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And I don't know what else. Dude, we're wearing the ATT shirts, and even the guide's like, he's looking at us. He's like, aliens. Yeah, aliens. I know. Yeah. So okay,
and I would say yes, but then I would also say that, like I said before, I was like, there could have been a lot. Usually, I mean, those traditionally were covered with like wooden structures as well.
Are you a patriot? Were you there on the grounds of Chichen Pizza?
I can't say that, Mr. Ventura.
I bet you he stormed the beaches of Chichen Itza when he was a Navy SEAL.
When I was a Navy SEAL, I stormed the beaches of Chicken Pizza. I was there. Were you there, Dan?
So another suspect, perhaps, is not only do you have extraterrestrials thrown into the mix or the legend of Baalbek, but you also have, in the opinion of David Childress,
real life Indiana Jones, by the way.
Yes, real life Indiana Jones, self-described as real life Indiana Jones.
No.
And described by us, I suppose. He perhaps puts in the hat the name of the Osirian Empire, or quoting him, the Assyrian civilization, according to esoteric tradition,
like
was an advanced civilization.
Osirian.
Like Osiris.
Oh, wow.
Was an advanced civilization contemporary with Atlantis. So not necessarily Atlantis itself, but another civilization that lived within the Mediterranean basin, like before it was an ocean, I suppose. And then it was destroyed by the same biblical Great Flood, which also destroyed Atlantis and the rest of the antediluvian world.
Yeah, this is so the story with this, I mean, it's not set in stone, but through all the different theories, you had Atlantis, you had the Osirian, and you also had Mu, like the three different
on the other side.
On the other side, so you had like three controlling superpowers of the ancient world before the destruction, the flood, the cataclysm that wiped them out.
Right. So you'd have Atlantis out beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and then you'd have the Mediterranean basin inhabited by the Osirian Empire, I suppose. And then you'd have Lemuria, or I guess Mu or Lemuria, if they're interchangeable, out in near, I guess, the Indian Ocean, I think is the most likely spot. Yeah, it was like they put it in
Indian Ocean through like Indonesia to like Australia, pretty much.
Yeah. So you'd have those three. So that's David Childress puts that into some of his books that this is perhaps their work. Where I mean, potentially, I think he also, there's probably a connection there that he makes with like the Phoenicians. That the Phoenicians, I know the Phoenicians come up a lot, and that perhaps they were. There's probably at least one or two historians like try to make the connection that the Phoenicians were, Atlantean refugees or some point, because it's easy to make that, to reason it out, because you have this civilization that is really not, I mean, they barely considered themselves connected in terms of like a traditional country. Like they existed in just separate city states and colonies around the Mediterranean. They didn't have a singular nation at all. And they were just these, world renowned at the time, ancient world renowned mariners and like traders. So they're just plying the seas and making all this stuff. So there's
I'm a descendant of the Atlanteans, is what you're saying, Dan. I'm an Atlantean prince. I'm the Atlantean mongoose, pal.
No, I think you're the
my trident.
You're the Osirian descendant.
Osirian.
According to Childress, you're the Osirian descendant because Atlantis was a little farther to the west.
You are freakishly strong for your size. I'll give you that.
It is true.
Yeah, but I can't swim. Terrible swimmer. And the other thing too.
Yeah, but that's Atlantis. We're not saying you're from Atlantis. Atlantis was was drowned.
You don't have to swim if you're on a boat.
90% of Lebanese people can't swim.
which it didn't say they were great swimmers. It just said that they were great, sailors. So I mean,
I do have that
if you're on a boat.
You guys know about that little weird, like that little hole some people have by their ear? That means they like might have been able to breathe underwater at one point.
Breathe underwater?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, have you ever heard of that before? I'll Google it.
Hold on,
I have
what did you just claim?
That
some people have this.
Wait, bring your head in closer to the camera. Bring it in.
I did super close.
Get real close. Get real close.
Did you claim
Andrew just
to
has
be
a
able
hole
to?
In his, it's like a dent in his skull.
Did Andrew just claim to be able to breathe underwater?
His ancestors
used to. My ancestors, the Atlantean mongooses, used to be able to do it, or the Osirian mongooses
breathe underwater.
Team.
Hey, well, I mean, if you were like a marine people. Why not?
I mean, hey, listen. There's the tribe in what is it,
It's
Polynesia,
a pre-articular
where
pit.
they've evolved to see underwater, like they're.
Oh well, yeah, they can willfully control the contractions of their pupil.
Yeah, and they don't have the water. They don't have the distortion of the water, and they can hold their breath like 3 times longer than the average person.
I'm not putting anything past them. Right?
those are adaptations. So maybe. What'd you call it, Andrew? What's that thing called?
His ear hole.
No, it's a breathing hole through his temple.
Yeah,
Pre-auricular hole. I don't know, boys. I'm fucking
pre-auricular.
Pre-auricular
before your ear, behind your ear hole.
It's a pre-auricular sinus, apparently.
Okay,
I got. I'm getting way too deep into this here.
We're getting too deep on the fly, but maybe we'll say maybe. Even if you couldn't breathe underwater, and that hole allowed you to equalize pressure easier or something. Dive deeper with no air.
It is, boys. It's only one way to find it. Let's get a bucket of water. See how long I can do it.
Just dunk them in.
Yeah.
All right, next pod trip. We'll do it.
So just to kind of impress on people like here towards the end about like how impressive that these stones are. Like they are the largest stones that are they're quarried by human hands. Like it's that allegedly. Is a fact. Allegedly.
They're the largest stones quarried to be part of a structure.
Right, to be part of a structure. Because you do have other stones that were larger. You have, for example, the Thunderstone, which is the pedestal that rests.
That's how you get a Raichu. We know this, Dan.
Yes, this is basics. Yeah, if you want to,
it's the only way you want a Raichu there. You got to evolve
level
your Pikachu.
30. No, I guess you don't really need to be a level.
You don't have to be a level, but you need to make sure it is. Because I remember I did that. I fucked up. I evolved my Eevee way too fast when he was a little bitch.
Yeah, that's right. You want to learn Thunder first. Or I think you probably want to learn Thunder or Thundershock first. But
you got to beef him up.
So you have a horse statue that sits upon there of great Peter the Great in the Senate Square in St. Petersburg, Russia. Now, this stone originally weighed about 1,500 tons, but was carved down during its transportation to its current size, which now it weighs about 1,250 tons, which is no small amount of rock.
And wasn't it carved? It was carved. I think it was carved actually like as it went.
Yeah, on the way.
On the way, they were
while
carving
it was going. It was originally Marinos Carburis, who's a Greek from the island of Kefalonia, who was serving as a lieutenant colonel in the Russian army at the time, had offered to undertake this project that was commissioned by Catherine the Great to kind of put this statue up on this stone. So he actually came up, he developed from conception and a metallic sledge that slid over bronze spheres, which is like kind of the precursor to ball bearings. It was the same kind of concept of ball bearings, but those hadn't been invented yet. And they just kind of rolled this along a track that had to be constantly, I mean, they were moving like feet a day, I suppose, like not even that far, like a couple yards a day, moving this entire stone on a piece of track that had to be constantly disassembled and then reassembled in front of it. It's like a Looney Tune cartoon of Wile E. Coyote like taking train tracks from behind him and throwing it out in front,
Acme,
while they're pulling it, But an impressive part of it is that they did it during winter when the ground is hard, and they only used human power. There were no animals, no engines, no nothing. It was only humans dragging that thing for miles.
But even that,
to get it where it's going to go.
So they had to do it over winter and to move the track. Even just with the ball, I wonder how many ball bearings, just because to take the weight of 1,500 tons. Even through whatever track they're using with however frozen the ground was, would be so much pressure on a single point. So he must have had hundreds or thousands of bearings slowly just taking the weight as they push this thing along.
Then you have the unfinished obelisk which is located in Aswan, Egypt, and its creation, which had been ordered by Hatshepsut in 1508 to somewhere in 1458 BC. That was her reign, I suppose. And then it was as its name says, it was unfinished, and it probably would have measured around 42 meters, 138 feet, and would have weighed about 1,000 tons or 1,200 short tons. The obelisk creators carved it directly out of the bedrock of where it was located, but cracks. Archaeologists have determined that cracks appeared in the granite, and then the project was actually abandoned. And so the bottom side of the obelisk is still attached to the bedrock. And I was kind of thinking about this earlier. It's like, how much does that got to suck that you're carving out this entire obelisk, and then you got this huge thing has been commissioned by the pharaoh of all Egypt, and then you're like, oh shit, like. We spent months carving this thing out, and there's a crack in it. And I said, you got to bribe some temple priest real hard to be like, look, can you tell him that Osiris doesn't like it and cracked it?
The gods cracked it.
Gods cracked
for
it.
sure.
Yeah. We'll throw a couple extra votive
I imagine they all just pieced out
month.
and were never to be
God's
seen
will.
from again. They were just like, leave. We're gone.
Oh, well,
the will of
Horus
the
said
gods.
it, not today.
Yeah.
So it is. So the trilithon is an immensely impressive achievement.
It was quarried, transported, and lifted 20 feet into the structure on top of other stones, 800
and
tons.
then slid precisely into position.
And not only
on top of those stones.
and not only just slid, but matched with a mirror image of a bevel done with like laser-like precision, and then just placed together. Mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
Now we've talked about, so I just want to talk about one more giant stone before we go into more theories here. So we had the obelisk, we had the thunderstone. Did you guys come across the Yangshan quarry in China?
No.
No.
I don't think it was. It wasn't at the top of the list.
No, because it's so what this was.
Wow.
What this is.
I have now.
So what this was some ancient emperor in the Ming Dynasty in like 1300s commissioned this stele, which is like a 3 stacking stone structure.
Yeah.
And he commissioned it, I think his name, Zhu Huangzhang of the Ming Dynasty. He commissioned a 3-part stele that was never finished, but what it is quarried stone. The first stone was quarried and cut, unexcavated, so never moved. So I'll tell you, you'll find out why in a second. And it was 16,250 tons, the first stone. 16,000.
Yeah, they poured it and they went, how we move this? We can't.
Here it is. Here's the
Impossible.
stone. This thing is unbelievable. It is 99 feet long, 43 feet thick, and 52 feet tall, weighing 16,000 tons. They quarried like this big ambitious project with thousands of workers to make this stele for the emperor. They cut that. They cut a second one called the stele body, which is 162 foot long. This would have been like the height because it was going to be stacked on top.
Kind of looks like the floating rock from Zardoz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks
a
like,
little bit.
looks like a Jawa sand crawler is what it looks like.
So yeah, the body 162 feet long, so really tall. It would have been stood up if it was finished, 35 feet wide and 14 feet thick. So like a big, tall like body. And then the stele head was 35 by 67 by 28. And that weighed 16,250 was the base. 8,800 was the body, and 6,118 tons was the head. Obviously, they got to the end, they cut them all, and they're like, we'll never move this. And they just lie.
You can't.
Possible.
They lie in place in this
The
quarry.
Anunnaki left. We have no means.
Not
to
even the
move this.
Anunnaki had powerful enough beams to lift these stones. That's how big.
What? Like, it's like, why did you guys do this?
Yeah, the emperor, he was really ambitious. And then and now it just lies there, never moved, never. They got to the end, they're like, this is impossible. You could have all the members of the country try and lift this, and it's not going anywhere. But
Yeah, you're not gonna have enough manpower. You're not gonna have. There's no simple machine in the world that's gonna give you enough.
no, I just stumbled across that. I was like, what?
Yeah.
There's no chance. What? It's foolish, but cool. 16,000 tons. Get out of town.
Ain't going nowhere.
It's moving a mountain. You're moving an entire mountain.
All right, we getting into some theories now.
Yeah, let's get into some theories.
All right. So what I was thinking when I got into this one is that one of the things I was reading was the weathering of the stones, which is why they think it's relatively newer than we think, and it's not as old as we might think, is because limestone weathers really easy. They can track it pretty good in the area. And the reason why they think this is newer is because what good condition it's in. Now, they thought this before the discovery of Göbekli Tepe. Now, Göbekli Tepe has taught us that limestone purposely buried can,
seals nicely
and can hold some great detail. So what I think is that because much like Göbekli Tepe, it's not written anywhere. No one knows about it. That I think this whole site was at one time completely buried. And I think it's been unearthed in our modern times of the Romans and stuff like that. And it's been slowly being unearthed. I think this is an ancient structure that's much older than we even understand. The problem is that it's much like how we've theorized that the pyramids are older and then just cultures have come in and claimed it as their own. I think that's what's happened to these structures. Is I think these structures are much older than we credit, and they were purposely buried. And like the pregnant lady, it wasn't unearthed, for a long time. It's in such good condition. I think there's going to be more stones found when we can get in there and start studying this area more. But I think this is much older than we realize. And so when we're trying to explain it with what we know about cultures in the time where we think it kind of is, and I think we can throw that out the window because I believe it's much older. And if you read that it is the Romans, I believe the Romans built on top of it and they repaired it. But there's just nothing like this anywhere else in the world, like the sheer size. You think that this would have been remembered or logged somewhere, like, you remember that time we fucking did those, there's the biggest stones anyone's ever seen ever in human history. We were just lugging those up and moving them around. Like, you think someone would have shared that information across time somewhere. Yeah. Especially with the Romans. So I don't know. I don't know if it's an ancient culture with advanced civilization. If we're talking like Freddy Silva, maybe it's the Shining Ones from the Younger Dryas before some sort of cataclysmic event that buried everything. But I think much like Göbekli Tepe, and the mystery around that is, why was it backfilled? Why was it buried? I believe this site was buried as well. It was just unearthed, thousands of years ago.
Dude, that's it. I really like where you're going with this theory, and I'm going to add to it. So 100% guaranteed the Romans built here. Undeniable. This is a Roman. It is
undeniable. It's a fact.
A Roman
they
site.
Built there.
You have the
There's Roman columns. There's Roman drums. They're there. The signs.
They showed up. They're like, the work's already half done for us. Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but so what I think is, so as you said, we've excavated these giant stones. And if, say, the Romans showed up and they didn't cut these giant stones, and they showed up and they're like, well, this is 800-ton stones. We have no problem moving 40 to 80-ton columns, but this is way too big. I think the first thing they would have done if that stone was exposed is they would have cut that for the foundation. That's what I think is like, okay, we can get 100 pieces out of this for the temple, but there's no way we can move 800 tons. We have all these cranes. Like, hey, we couldn't get enough
stones right here.
We couldn't get enough cranes in here and manpower to move this. Let's just cut it and put it in as we normally would build everywhere else in the Roman Empire. So I think that the stones were buried, and I think that there's more to be discovered. Andrew's already talked about, they have no money to excavate. They don't bring in international teams. Like, there's a lot more that can be done here. So what if the stones aren't even buried? They were covered accidentally. If you're going to go with a great deluge or a flood or some type of like great movement of water. So anytime a river moves, or like we've just witnessed in BC locally, anytime a river swells and moves with such force, it just moves all the dirt and mud around it. So if, say, there was a massive flood. So I'm saying this now, and this is a pretty high above sea level, right? We're talking, what do we say, 1,200 meters? Or
about 1,200, 1,100, 1,200.
Let's entertain the idea that there was some type of mass flood.
Okay.
And this was, as my boy Graham Hancock says, just like other temples around the world, a pre-existing advanced civilization. He never says aliens. Let's get that clear. Hancock never says aliens. He says pre-Diluvian
Antediluvian.
pre-Younger Dryas cataclysm civilization built this stuff. It built fucking mind blank. We was talking.
Yeah,
about.
it's because you're gripping with two hands.
9,000.
It's built all these other civilizations, megalithic civilizations around the world. They were wiped out. Civilization came back, repurposed, rebuilt on top. If you look at the foundation of this place, it doesn't seem as Roman as others. I think that, yeah, this is just older. These stones were buried. If the stones were exposed when the Romans came, I think they would have chopped them up into more manageable, still large Roman-style stones, like could have been 8, 10, 20 tons. But 800 is unfathomably large. And the fact that
logically, that makes a lot of sense. That if the pregnant lady was there and they would have seen it, or why not cut them up? It would for efficiency's sake. That makes a lot of sense to me. That would add up. That would be something. It's not because there's just no evidence of them doing anything of this magnitude anywhere else.
Not with stones this big. And the crazy thing, like Dan said at the start, no one really knows the history of this place. Besides the Romans were there. That's about all we know.
It's fucking cool, man.
Yeah. It's a really cool one.
Okay.
Well, I want to finish with you because it's your
home. Yeah. It's the homeland.
Hometown hero.
Hometown hero. Yeah.
We got to hear from the
Hometown heroes.
Osirian. What is it? Osirian mongoose.
Assyrian mongoose.
I like Atlantean mongoose, but I'll take.
Hey, you can take whatever you want.
Assyrian.
Either one.
I'll take both. AKA.
You're a hybrid.
Yeah, like I said before, with the absence, the absolute absence of evidence about who built this and who constructed this entire building is lost to time. We don't have anything, no written records, no archaeological records, no nothing, no tablets or stone tablets or anything, records of it being built or depictions of it being built or anything. A lot of theories kind of pop out about where it came from, and none of them you can say are 100% wrong because nobody really knows. But I mean, we do know the fact that it's like it doesn't pop up. The temples are never really mentioned, and these structures are never really mentioned until you get to around like the Roman periods, and that they built those. And it might have been like these places were commissioned to be built like after it became a tourist destination. Essentially, it became a wealthy Romans took up places there after it was favored by Julius Caesar. It kind of became in vogue. It could have been people were just pouring money into this place to build these temples and whatnot. A lot of the literature, a lot of the studies and analysis of this area. There is a lot of studies that have been done on this. Unfortunately, like for us, like a lot of them are not in English. There's a lot that are not in English, and
which is
one
hard
of the best ones
because that's what we read.
Yes, that's what we read. We're best at reading.
That's all we got.
And one of the ones that I came across probably the best examples. They had a lot of diagrams, and it was like a French professor of ancient architecture kind of came across and gave a kind of depiction about how you would move these stones, potentially how you would move these stones. So you'd have to put out roads. Who's good at making roads? Romans are good at making roads.
Really
we
good.
know that. They're still there.
They're really good at
they're underneath everything still.
They're everywhere, and people still use them.
It's crazy. Yeah, there's all those memes about like, ancient Roman road from 2,400 years ago, modern Canadian road from last winter, destroyed.
Yeah, exactly. So who's good at paving and making roads? The Romans. If you look at the connection to you look at the distance and you look at where the stone quarry is for the stone of the pregnant women, and those other stones that were quarried there were probably, they look very similar to the ones that are there. So they were probably supposed to go there. You can, the temple that quarry is slightly higher in elevation. So you could move those stones. How would you move those stones? Well, you could probably put them on rollers. That could be one way that I saw explained.
It doesn't freeze. Freeze there though. Ground doesn't freeze.
It doesn't freeze there, but doesn't it get cold in Lebanon?
Yeah, you can ski in Lebanon.
Yeah, so it does get cold. You could potentially move this, and winter would be the best time to do this because I think traditionally, like these kinds of projects were done during the winter times because that's what you use to keep the populace, the farming populace, the mainly agrarian populace,
busy,
occupied on the off season.
Sure,
right? Because if you leave farmers alone and unoccupied for a long time, what do you get? Rebellion. That's what you get. So you want to give them a project to work on and kind of a community project. So this would be something like that, I suppose. We don't have any records, so we don't really know. But
that seems odd to me, though. If you're going to take on a project this big of this magnitude, someone there would have to realize that, like, hey, this is going to be some of the biggest stones that we've ever seen, we've ever done. Right, we're really testing it. You think that would have, trickled some stories at least? Right, you're absolutely right, and we don't have those records to kind of just 100% support that. But moving these stones is not something that is impossible. Like it could possibly be done with the technology of the time. So you could use rollers. That's one way you could do it. Another novel way that I saw that another kind of engineer said, like you could take a wheel. Well, you could take a wheel, right? And you could make the axis it's probably not how they did it, but I thought it was a really funny way to mention, like, it's like somebody illustrated, like you could take a wheel, right? And make the axis, you could have a square axis surrounded by the wheel and the stone would be the axis. And then you could roll it to where you're supposed to. It's really dumb. I thought it was a really dumb idea, but I thought it was funny. Like, I just thought it was like, it's been done before. You could hook up 9-car batteries on a frequency and just levitate it into place.
So that's not okay. So maybe that one's not is impractical, but it has been done before. There is evidence that has probably been done before. That you can roll a large stone into place. Not just putting it.
Not an 800-ton though. Let's be super.
Not an 800-ton one. Perhaps not. No. So you could put it on wooden rollers that we know that is kind of a thing, and then pull. Now pulling, if you were going to pull this straight up with humans, you'd probably need you need a lot of people just to pull it.
Thousands and thousands of people.
So what do you use when you need to multiply manpower? Like, what do you do is you use simple machines. What simple machines were available during the day? You had things like a windlass. So you could use like a windlass, and then so like a windlass, like a capstan, is a vertically mounted kind of axle, and you could put people on there with a system of pulleys, and then you could connect those ropes onto logs, kind of like that were like on the front and the back of the stones, and you could.
You know who created all this stuff? You know who's the ones that created all this shit? It was the tribe of Dan. No, it was the tribe of Dan. The only fucking nerds that can figure out how to move these fucking stones.
The thing though is, again, like in theory, this all works, and we've seen it in practice in human history with far smaller stones. Like, I just want to reiterate that the size of the stones we're talking about. When you say like we could do this, you have to add in theory, because no one's moved stones this big.
There's no big stones in Lebanon.
There's no evidence of people moving stones of this size with these methods.
You'd have to.
I'm just saying it could be done.
In theory, we could get some really good rope and we could do this in theory. But one thing in theory and to actually practically apply it is two different things. Because we look at the stones in China and there gets to size where we just can't move them.
And those ones are magnitudes larger than what those
were. Yeah, they were. It was 10 times larger. But if you say like rolling on wood, there's no chance. Maybe if you had some type of like stone rollers or something that
are bronze. Well, maybe not.
You would just crush it into the ground.
You would have bronze then.
Well, so I'm saying, okay, I don't know.
Theories are
how
good.
hard is cedar wood from Lebanon? Andrew,
as hard as it gets, brother.
Cedar wood is
giant stones on top of it.
Cedar wood is a soft wood.
Yeah.
Hey, he's calling your wood soft.
I'm calling those Lebanese cedars soft, buddy.
Can you take that shit?
There's nothing soft about Lebanon, pal.
Get him.
All right.
I'm gonna call also at the same time cedars from around the whole world soft and weak.
So
except for the ones from Lebanon.
Maybe perhaps you could actually drag these things. If you had enough force, you could drag these things, and you could probably put sand down in front of them to move them to where you were. Sure. There's evidence that this has been done. So you can put sand there and move it.
Yeah, again, evidence this has been done with far smaller stones.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt everything, and nobody who's listening to this podcast can understand, but look at the chat right now and see the last thing that was just said. My buddy Rob can't swim because he has no legs.
Poor Rob.
I'm sorry, Rob,
Sorry,
but that's
Rob.
just that caught the corner of my eye. It's fucking killing me.
I did not notice that. Now
What's the context to that?
Yeah, what is the
We're
context?
talking about like some people in chat were talking about they're not quite sure how to understand that there are some people can't swim. And I will say I was in the Navy and there are people who join the Navy who can't
that just
swim.
can't swim.
Yeah. And they had to go in boot camp. They had to go to swimming lessons every day.
That would have been so fun where you get a what color do you want your water to do and you splash it?
They were terrible. Like there were just people who can't swim.
You gotta
They're
teach your
they're
kids.
just like negatively
When I say
buoyant.
I can't swim, when I say I can't swim, I can't swim well. I can fucking swim.
You're not going to throw Andrew in the
float.
pool and he's going to
I
drown.
can doggy paddle like a
He'll be all
motherfucker.
right.
Yeah.
All right. Andrew, Dan, were you
Yeah, I'm saying that these stones could possibly move, but it is impressive that they are there.
It's more CIA propaganda.
Sure.
That's all it is.
The CIA is super interested in
Baalbek. In Baalbek.
It's
Network
funny.
extracted
It's funny
sperm.
that you mentioned that, Dan. It's hilarious that you mentioned that because my theory isn't necessarily how it was built, but why it was built and who it was built by.
Yes.
And then, so have you ever heard of the Adam and Eve story by Chan Thomas?
It's different than the Bible version.
I've heard
It's
the
different.
one in the
It's
Bible.
a research paper.
That's
It's a
what I thought he was
research
gonna do.
paper.
Have you ever heard the Adam and Eve from the Bible, the little book called the Bible?
Nope. So this research paper that was written in 1966 by Chan Thomas was classified by the CIA and was just recently declassified. Well, 57 of the 288 pages of this paper were declassified in 2013. So now this paper centers around geographic anomalies and megalithic structures around the world, one of them being Baalbek. All right, CIA Dan, classifying all our shit.
Mm-hmm.
In this paper, it states that there is insurmountable evidence that we are the sixth advanced population to exist.
The sixth most
right.
advanced?
No, the sixth.
There are a lot of civilizations. So
okay,
I mean,
We're the sixth. Just don't interrupt with your smart shit for like 2 minutes, and then you can shoot holes in everything I say after.
I
know you'll be able to.
I think
So
it's Phoenician. It'll float.
So each prior being wiped out by some type of like massive calamity, right? Like Sal loves to fucking talk about, right? Cataclysms, whatnot.
Big old Younger Dryas cataclysm, baby.
So there's supposedly, according to this Chan Thomas guy, there's supposedly evidence found at Baalbek that all confirms this, and that there's evidence of a fucking cataclysm that's going to happen, in the modern world. So that's why this has all been redacted and hidden. And that's why, keep in mind too, that this was written in the height of the Cold War, right? So they're probably not wanting this type of shit floating around. Anyways, so it makes me think, it's like, why are they building these massive why are they trying to build these structures with these massive fucking stones? Like, is it just to show like, hey, look we can move these stones. I have the biggest temple, which means I got the biggest dink, right? Yeah. It's like our
That's
buddy who's
usually
got
what
the
it
big,
meant. Yeah.
right? Well, that's what we think.
That pregnant lady stone,
but
you
then
want to
you
know
also-
why it's half erect? It's because they just hadn't finished carving it
Half
into
chub.
a phallic shape. It's
a fucking half chub.
They hadn't carved the
obelisk.
glands into it.
Massive, stony, veiny obelisk.
It made me wonder because like the initial piece that was built was the platform, right? And then it made me think, it's like, okay, so what's underneath this? Because when we talk about like the stone of the pregnant lady, right? Potentially there's other megalithic structures underneath it, stones just like it. And then, got
They
me
don't
thinking
have
about
cool names.
underground.
They're just
and
two
then
unnamed. Yeah, they don't have cool
well,
names.
because they don't know
And
what
it
it
hasn't
is,
been
right?
2
Like
minutes.
so made me start thinking, it's like, so, okay, got me on the train of like, okay, underground, brought me to like Denver airport.
Ooh.
Right. What are they building the Denver airport for? Right. What is the big,
it's an
the big
airport.
conspiracy around
End
that?
of days bunker.
It's end of days bunker.
That's the rumor. Yeah.
Maybe that's what all these fucking megalithic structures were. These advanced civilizations were building these things to survive the cataclysmic events that were taking place.
Well, to take it further,
And that's why they
it's
had to
built in
use
mile-high
these
city,
giant
right?
ass fucking.
Like Denver, it's a high city, right? So if you're thinking of for like some sort of flood or something like that, rising sea levels, it's a
Makes sense.
the mile high city. We look at this. Göbekli Tepe's pretty high above sea level, and Baalbek is pretty high above sea level.
I suppose that does check out because there are reports that I came across that they said that there's underneath Baalbek.
And then what else does it have in common?
There are 2-3 like tunnels like that are like subway tunnel size.
Right. And then what else do these have in common too, right? Like little information. We have little information on Göbekli Tepe. We got fucking next to nothing on fucking Baalbek, right? And then we're currently working on them right now. Like, what is fucking Elon Musk doing? The one guy who's saying we need to get to Mars more than anything. What's he working on? What's the Boring Company working on?
Underground tunnels, baby.
Underground tunnels, right? It just, I don't know why. I was fucking on the plane. I took a couple CBD fucking gummies.
Dude,
and that's
I like that theory because there's that. There's the Göbekli Tepe. There's Baalbek. There's others. There's Puma Punka. There's like all these other structures that are well above sea level that have massive megalithic like stones. Big.
Like why else? Like I understand being like, hey, look at my temple's the biggest temple. You know, like that's cool, Chip. But like to go to that much effort to move these fucking stones that nobody else has ever been able to move before. It's like they're doing it for a fucking reason.
What's that?
More than that.
What's that river in the area? It's funny because now that we're getting on the thing of cataclysms, one of the things I saw is like one of the books, and I wish I would have wrote this down, but I didn't think it tied in at all. So I did one of these. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Cool. And then next thing, but there was some ancient book in this area that said when this river runs dry is the next cataclysm, and it showed like what it would have looked like when this was written, and then today.
Oh, and it's Beirut like, River,
maybe, and it's like there's like river. Barely anything left to it, and I was like, that's interesting.
Oh shit, we're almost dead,
times, baby.
But of course, if you were writing something in ancient times, like if your river ran dry,
you would die.
That would be a cataclysm. But no, it is interesting that the location of Baalbek is situated in an area that traditionally would be considered a very favorable place to place a city. Like it is a place that you would think that would be inhabited and written about because of it's located near like a couple of bodies of water, forests, and natural resources and things were close in that area. So you would think there would be more writings and more recorded history about this location than there's
any recorded history.
Mm-hmm. So it is a 100% super mystery.
And when you look at like the pictures of like just like the landscape, it looks like a beautiful place.
It is a beautiful, dude. Lebanon's beautiful, man. It's the Paris of the Middle East, is what they call it.
And yeah, as far as like the rest of the area around like Syria and like Syria is the closest place, right? Closest big country.
Yeah, but Lebanon. It had like Syria used to be really nice too, though, didn't it? It had like the fucking Hanging Gardens of Babylon and shit like that. Like
that's true. Like yeah, I guess maybe like climate could have changed a lot.
I think pre was it Seleucid dynasty? Like I think it's pre that time. Like that area probably would have been absolutely like a paradise.
Absolutely,
like in that area because before like kind of the warring kingdoms of that area. I think because even when Alexander went in there, like he put his foot down and put everything back together because it was like before that there was like warring kingdoms kind of just tearing that place apart. But yeah, it's a place of antiquity, and it's just there's so much history there, and there's so much stuff that unfortunately, because it's been inhabited for so long. I mean, this is the cradle. One of the places you could say is the cradle of civilization. When you have people living in a place for so long, like everything's just buried underneath everything else.
Yeah.
And you can't find anything. So that's why you get those things in Egypt where you're finding ancient temples with dozens of mummies buried underneath them that nobody's ever found before, and they're found in somebody's fucking basement.
Dude, this is
you've been living over a bunch of fucking mummies this whole time.
This is really like because I keep thinking to Göbekli Tepe and the mysteries there of like it's so high up. It's it's older than it predates anything we knew. It's basically the cradle of like agriculture when everyone should have been hunter and gatherers. Like to me that points to, like you're saying, Andrew, this was some place for people to go, a refuge, right? And like
I like that.
Right. And then maybe Göbekli Tepe is, maybe older, if not as old as Baalbek, but Baalbek has just been uncovered more like recently, or was uncovered back then. Like we didn't find Gobekli Tepe. You know what I'm trying to say?
We get you.
But like maybe these things, because these areas, it seems like there's some like advanced civilization that shouldn't be in these areas. That I really like that theory of that maybe these are some sort of
bunkers.
Bunkers. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Derinkuyu, we've had Gobekli Tepe, we have Baalbek, we got all these places that seem out of history, out of context. And then, so I think we can all agree that this was a pre-existing, prior to the flood civilization, prior to the Younger Dryas Cataclysm civilization that was wiped out. The Romans came, they built on top, and we're all on complete board with that for the first time ever, right?
Yes. Yes.
Let's leave it at let's leave it at
Yes.
because we're going long. So
Double up.
hey, it's a really cool place that doesn't get enough
seriously,
credit.
Hashtag look it up. Look at some of the pictures. I'd never heard about it till researching this, and which is a goddamn shame because it's unbelievable. Like it's a bucket list item now. I wish
it's one of those. It's one of those things that it is 100% a mystery.
Yeah,
about where
so
those stones
cool.
came from and how they got there. Like it is a legitimate mystery where it's not some headline catching bullshit that the people throw up in there. It's like, no, it is actually legit. We have no written records about where those stones came from and how they got there.
Love it.
all right, Theorite of the week.
Yeah, move to wrap it up here. Theorite of the week.
Now, we'll give it this time, but normally we don't like promoting you to listen on Spotify for no big deal. But every now and then you get a guy like Trey Sykes who listened to 37,422 minutes of Alien Theorists theorizing last year, 236 episodes. He must have had some on repeat. That's listening through it.
No, that's all our episodes.
Is 37,000 minutes 422?
Well, 236 episodes we have, I believe.
Yes, but I'm thinking that he had to listen to a couple on repeat to get that number.
That guy's heard my voice more than my own father. That's a fucking fact,
dude. That's honestly, crazy. Like
I could barely listen to these guys for an hour.
No,
so, I mean.
He's probably getting up there to listening to us more than anyone else in our lives.
Literally,
like pretty close.
How many minutes did you say he listened
some
for?
Some of my students, maybe
37,422 minutes.
Wow, yeah, he listened to all of them like twice. Say we got 240 episodes of 75 minutes each. That's only 18,000 minutes.
Yeah.
So he's almost listened twice over.
Yeah. So Trey Sykes, a huge monumental power through. And there were some other close ones. I saw 32. I saw 29. I saw an 18. Like there was some people who
they did the Spotify rap thing, and you could see everybody listen to us. And for me, I see that stuff, and I'm just like, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
People listen to us for that long. It's neat. It's cool. I'm glad everybody likes to enjoy to listen to us.
I can't believe it. We really appreciate all the support, all the listening hours.
Not bad for 4 cyberbullies, eh, boys?
4 cyberbullies. We'll get to that story in after hours. We got out of time here, but there's one more thing we got to do before I read some new Patreon supporters, and that was a very polite message from the ATI this time. I thought I would oblige them with something here, so I'm gonna play a little video here.
It's been a while.
The following announcement has been paid for by Alien Theorist Illuminati.
Hey guys, I'd like to send a shout out to Zell, Braden, Dan, and Andrew, all from the Alien Theorist Illuminati podcast.
It's fucking Tim Scullion.
Hey guys, I'm taking over your podcast just to send out a big thank you to you for supporting my work here in Colonial Williamsburg, photographing not only ghosts, but also I got some other interesting things that particularly the alien theorists might like to look at.
So I'm going
to send out a shout to you guys for great holidays, and I got another video coming in just a second. And so I'd like to take over the podcast for just a couple minutes to tell you guys thank you for your support. And just to show you guys that I'm not just about ghosts, I wanted you to look at first off, the wing of the jet that I was flying on, but then take a look over this way.
What are we looking at, Tim?
What is that thing?
Oh, I know.
Is that a UFO?
The orbs?
You alien theorists, start theorizing.
Are those orbs?
I see
Some
a little
people
orb
say
there on
that
the bottom and on
is
the right.
possibly a portal too. Why?
Ooh.
If you look down below, there seems to be a lot of orbs flying around. Some of them are kind of opaque and hard to see, but they are there. So what say you? Portal or UFO? Now I'm going to show you a few more photos.
Portal.
And do they cross a line between ghost and alien? Are they interdimensional beings? What are they?
What the fuck is that, Tim?
What is that? Is that a spine?
rib
Maybe a
cage.
cryptid.
This is some eyes. I don't
Oh
like
my
it.
god.
Tim. God damn, blowing my mind, Tim.
That's an alien.
Oh, that's
Rays
an
and
alien.
moons there.
Those are grays.
that's an
Those
alien.
are grays for sure.
Look at that cute
Those are
face.
some alien eyes.
What the hell is happening? What is going on?
How'd
What
you
is
like
he
to have
showing us
glowing
right now?
eyes
Blowing
like
my
that?
mind. It's fucking losing it.
Or that.
What? This is irrefutable evidence of UFO
Check out the
activity.
guy from Hellraiser.
Oh my god, that
The
does look
hell
like
is
Hellraiser.
that?
Fuck it. Then what the
Look,
fuck?
Ma, no nose. Look at my shiny head.
I feel like we're watching Gabe's Halloween movie.
How's that
from
for
The Office.
alien
It's
eyes?
scary.
What the hell is that?
Holy
Or
fuck, Tim.
alien-shaped heads.
Has Tim taken all these?
Look
Ow!
where
That's
Fausto got
awful.
his
man.
influence from.
Tim.
He's like, and that one's my butthole.
There's a giant ghost in the crowd of people.
Gotcha.
And over on the far left of this photo is that guy.
Oh, fuck.
What the fuck, Tim? Come on.
And E.T.
That's an ET right there.
We gotta meet this guy.
I'm losing it.
We got to meet Tim
And
Scullion.
is that a
got
flying
her.
saucer above the house?
Yes, Tim.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
What is
Tim.
that?
I believe it.
And take a look at the family of
Oh,
clones
dude, those are
that I have.
grays, boys.
I think he's using his patented method of
And where'd that
he
alien
has some
come
type of
from?
photographic thing.
Why has he got a picture of Braden?
Almost forgot. Hey, Braden, I think you owe the Mem King another award. So thank you guys for all your support.
That's him on your.
And
That's
maybe
him
one
on
day
your
we can
his
get
Galaxy Samsung
together and
Galaxy
talk
tablet.
on your podcast.
The
Until
Mem
then,
King.
all
The
of
Meme
y'all
King.
keep your eyes on the sky and have a great holiday.
Who's the Mem
Got it.
King?
The meme
That's
king.
pretty
Come
funny.
on, think about who could the meme king be?
That's a Burmese.
It's gotta be
But you
Burmese.
know what?
It's gotta be the Meester.
It's close. It's close. I'm gonna get a little finicky on there, Burmeister. If that was you and that, the deal was you had to be in Colonial Williamsburg with him in it. Like that's good. That's pretty good.
It was pretty
I'm gonna
good.
get
It was
you
a
on
good
a
video.
technicality.
Pretty good.
That's
It was good.
pretty funny. I never thought I'd end up on Tim Scullion's Samsung Galaxy tablet.
We're famous. We're famous now. We got Tim Scullion's Galaxy tablet. That's fucking awesome. ATI.
I want to see some more of those photos.
ATI coming through.
Tim Scullion had some amazing photos on there. So
The only thing, when they say never meet your heroes, because I really pictured him talking like Macho Man, and I've seen videos of him where I knew he didn't.
and he doesn't dog like
No, he doesn't at
ever.
all. But in my head, he does.
But you watched videos of him where he
he's a
does.
fucking
you've
cool
seen
guy.
him
No,
before.
he does.
Yeah.
I redub it while I'm listening
While you're watching it.
in real time in my head.
It was awesome.
all right, let's wrap this
Groovy.
case file up. We'll get into some after hours after this. But if you're not supporting the show and you want to support your boys, your favorite podcast, if you don't know where to go by now,
Yeah, you're
Figure it out.
Hey,
yeah,
suck it.
figure it out.
You obviously
no.
haven't been listening to 37,000 minutes of us.
Yeah, come on. You ain't no Trey Sykes.
I know.
This week's newest supporters, we got Daisy and Contused. Nice. Halfway.
Days infused.
No, Daisy and Contused. No. You got it. Halfway, Josh Gonzalez, Chase Lovelace, Mike Minviel goes up to a full year pledge. The Space Mayan, Corey, James Barnett, Spencer D, Trevor Stutko, Ben Gingerella, Kidney Thief, hands off, Gerardo Perez, Richmond Robinson, and last but not least, Eric Gonzalez. Thank you very much for supporting the show.
And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the skies.
Peace. See you in after hours.